All right, excited to bring in our next guest here. If you're a baseball fan, you might know him. There he is in his bird shirt. Love to see it.
Yes.
Uh, I would say, Tyler, I hope your LinkedIn profile, you've written books, you've covered Major League Baseball, all that stuff is great and all, but you might be the sickest immaculate grid man I've ever seen in my life. I hope that's the lead of your LinkedIn.
Yeah, I actually don't have a LinkedIn, but I appreciate you saying that because I lost it today. I guessed a 6 WAR Minnesota Twin who played for the Senators way back in the 30s, and he didn't quite get 6 WAR. Heine Manouche, but what are you gonna do?
How
If you
could you
lose
miss
on
that
Heine
one?
Manouche, it's hard. I should have gone Goose Goslin. I'll be regretting it until tomorrow morning.
I know that game just tortures my brain, and I honestly don't like it because I don't like the torture it put me through.
And now I'm curious though, Tyler, do you have one specific person or answer that you remember that really even surprised you, that was like, whoa, this is next level even for myself? Like, you surprised yourself a little bit?
Yeah, well, sometimes there's stuff buried back in the brain. You have no idea why it just pops right in there. Like it's and then sometimes you'll have to think about it for a while. But like certain players, I don't know. I know their teams. There's a guy, he was a Phillies reliever in the mid '80s named Dave Rucker, and nobody remembers him. And he pitched for Detroit and the Cardinals and the Phillies and the Pirates. And whenever one of those team combinations come up, I just use him, and he gets this amazing score because like nobody remembers him. He was decent. He was good, in the '80s, but some guys just nobody remembers, so they're guaranteed to get low scores.
Yeah, and if you're unfamiliar with Tyler, he does a great job writing on The Athletic. He has several books out on baseball, including a history of baseball in 10 pitches. So definitely get familiar if you're unfamiliar with him. One of the great baseball scribes out there. Now, Tyler, we were just having the conversation before this because Braves fans and some other fans online are trying to discredit the Phillies' soft schedule to start the year. You can only play who's in front of you. You're a hometown guy, love the Phillies. What do you make of their hot start and the stupid discourse about the strength of schedule?
Yeah, I mean, the strength of schedule is there. I mean, you can't, you can only play who you play. So, what are you supposed to do when you're playing bad teams? They're doing exactly what they're supposed to do. And I was out there yesterday, and to see Nola pitch a complete game shutout, and the team is down, 3 of their big stars in the lineup, and they still find a way to scratch out 4 runs and win the game, and the night before they're down in the 9th inning to one of the great closers, and they find a way to win that one too. So they're finding ways to win in situations when whoever the competition is, they shouldn't win, or they should have, they should struggle. And that's the sign of a really, really good team, a team that just feels like winning is what they do. And it's making for, I think, an even more fun season in the sense that like you're not in this big hole that you're not going to get out of, and just figuring like, well, we'll get the wild card and see how it goes in the playoffs. Like they're a big dog now. They don't have to give any ground to the Braves because of this start. It's the exact opposite of the last couple of years, and I think that's what every Phillies person and Phillies fan was hoping for.
That's a great point that you bring up about how they're winning, because it's the birthday guy of the day, Cody Clemens, Christian Pache, Johan Rojas, a.k.a. Yo-Ro. It's, the bottom of the batting order. It's Whit Merrifield. And we've even seen, obviously, the last 2 days, it was Bryson Stott and Alec Boehm who continued to do well, while Bryson Stott much needed getting over the hump a bit. But it's not Bryce Harper. It's not Trey Turner, who's out with a hamstring injury. It's not Kyle Schwarber. It's a different guy every day. And a lot of times it's some of those smaller names, even Garrett Stubbs getting the bunt, that are stepping up to be able to help them score runs and win games. What do you make of the depth of this team and the ability for them to have that next man up mentality to grind out these wins? Because on the outside, it's an easy schedule. But we know internally, watching this team, the way they're winning, they're getting a lot of guys, major confidence builders, big moments, big opportunities, and they're shining and thriving in that.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, Dave Dombrowski's done a really good job, and his staff of strengthening the the edges of the roster. So when you get a situation like yesterday with some guys hurt, you have guys who step in and are versatile guys too, right? A Whit Merrifield is so helpful because he can play all over the place. Cody Clemens plays multiple positions, so these are guys who can, you don't just plug them into one spot. You can go all over the place. They haven't been tested in their rotation depth, and that's probably the biggest reason that they're winning. Is that they've had 5 starters healthy all year, and now 6 with that Taijuan Walker's back, and the guy who he replaced was Spencer Turnbull, who was doing terrific. So their starters, we all know, have been the biggest reason that they've been this good. And you just want them to stay healthy and keep rolling like this, because if you can, pretty much any team, if you can get your 5 intended starters to make all their starts or pretty much close to it, you're going to win a lot of games. And I'll include the Phillies in that because Turnbull was so good while Walker was out, and now Walker's back. So that's been the biggest part, and their depth really hasn't been tested too much there beyond Turnbull, who did a great job.
Yeah, and one of those guys is on the mound tonight, and that's Ranger Suarez, Tyler. And it's remarkable what he's doing this year. And the other guy, look, I know they don't give out Cy Youngs on May 15th, but Shota Imanaga for the Chicago Cubs. They're probably the 2 most deserving guys as of today when we're talking. And one of the big conversations around baseball is the pitching elbow problem, velocity. Paul Skeens is coming up, throwing over 17 times over 100 miles an hour. But Ranger Suarez and Shota Imanaga are both like guys throwing 92, 93 and kind of being crafty pitchers with an arsenal of pitches. Is there becoming a stronger case? I don't know if stronger case is the right way to say it, but is there becoming another way to view starting pitchers in this modern era where you don't need to go bust your elbow throwing 98 to 100 miles an hour all the time?
Yeah, well, yes and no. I mean, I think if you can throw that hard, you're going to throw that hard. It's just kind of the way that baseball is now. But I think there is and there should be an openness to looking at starters who can still be really effective at a little bit of a lower level, because like they always say, right, the best ability is availability. And if you're not out there, you're not helping the team. So, you get all these guys, these phenoms, these hard throwers, and you think, well, you're going to lose a year or two to injury. And it happened with Zach Wheeler as a young pitcher with the Mets. He missed 2 full years until he got to the point where he's physically healthy and durable and teams can rely on him. But he has that in his background too. It just happens to a lot of young guys. So luckily the Phillies right now seem like they're in a really good spot, and it is fun to watch Ranger. That change up from a lefty reminds me a lot of Hamels, and that's always something good to think about for Philly fans.
Yeah, I mean, as we saw yesterday with Aaron Nola throwing the complete game shutouts, that's the second. Of course, Ranger Suarez did it earlier this season, the second this season for the Phillies, whereas all of Major League Baseball has thrown in total 3 complete game shutouts. I mean, this pitching staff, the ERA, the things that they're accomplishing, obviously the team as a whole, but especially it starts with the pitching, the starting pitching at that, has been remarkable. They've been compared to some of the best that we've seen. I know you mentioned Hamels. They've been compared to 2011 and some of the best teams that we've seen over the years for the Phillies. Where do they stack up for you? It is only mid-May, but so far from what you've seen, where does this pitching staff really compare, and what do you think is the ceiling for this season for them?
Well, as you say, yeah, it's only a quarter of the year gone by, but it can't have gone any better so far from a team standpoint, and especially the rotation. So I think right now, they have to be considered the number 1 rotation in baseball. I don't think that's too much of a reach. Although you look at the Dodgers, and when they get everybody healthy and they have meaning that when they get Kershaw back, they would have Glasnow and Yamamoto and Kershaw, Buehler, and James Paxton, who's been really good. So that's another good one. Seattle's got a really good young rotation, and they're doing some really good things, although they don't hit that well as a team. So there are others out there, but I think the Phillies right now are the best, and they've been really, really consistent and steady every time through. It's been fun to watch. Even the other night when Sanchez didn't really have it, he walks in the run and then he immediately clicks in and strikes out 3 guys on 9 pitches. So, even when they get into trouble, they seem like they have a way of finding their way out of it.
Yeah, Tyler, you recently did a piece on The Athletic, which I loved, which was ranking the executives and the front offices around baseball. One, Alex Anthopoulos, if he hits gold with Chris Sale and he makes it through a whole season, throw that man in prison. But from your takeaway of doing this story, what is your impression about the Phillies front office around baseball? Because, they've taken some serious strides ever since Dave Dombrowski has gotten here, from not only strengthening the minor leagues to making major league moves that have panned out, and they've developed guys with Caleb Cotham. What was your impression of the Phillies front office in doing that piece around baseball?
Yeah, thanks. That was the piece myself and a few other guys were able to sort of combine our reporting and throughout spring training, just sort of asking every executive that we could see, just anonymously, but give me the 5 best front offices, the 5 front offices you think do it the best. And the Phillies weren't in the top 5, but they came up now and then. And people really do have a respect for what Dombrowski does, because Dave doesn't really mess around. He's very direct. He knows what he wants, and he is the perfect kind of GM for this team and this owner at this moment. Dave is good at, obviously he's good at spending money, but he believes in stars and he believes in the value of stars and paying for them. And we see that in the roster, but it's also more than that. He's really good at roster construction, again, as I said, on the margins, which Pat Gillick was really great at too. And sometimes you need an experienced hand to come in and sort of get the team over the hump of the finish line. I mean, they've already been to the World Series. They should have gone last year. They're 1 game away, and they're doing great this year. So Dombrowski has gotten it over the line. I mean, Matt Klentak and his group did do some good things. I don't think that should be forgotten. But we see it a lot where a certain front office will get a team to a point, and then you need another one to kind of get it to where you really want it to go. So Dombrowski has done a great job utilizing Middleton's resources and building up that roster with the group he has there with Sam Fold and the analytics staff and the scouting staff. They've all done a good job, and you see that a lot of the draft picks have been hitting, and they've traded the right guys too. They traded Sixto Sanchez. He's been hurt for most of his time with Miami to get Real Muto. When they signed Real Muto, they traded Ohapi, who's a good prospect, but that brought in Marsh, who kind of rearranged the character of that defense for the Phillies. And he got something out of Moniak, even if it was just, a half season of starts from Syndergaard. So, he's made a lot of really, I think, sharp moves. We see Clemens came in last year, and he's been a useful Swiss Army knife. Turnbull has been a good pickup. So, most of Dave's moves, I think, have made a lot of sense.
Yeah, and it definitely it's just great to see how this club has come together. And this season right now feels like a combination of, for the Phillies, the right mixture of talent, where guys are in their career. And so my last question for you is just to take a step back. I know a lot of us, we all had our predictions coming into the season. How many games will the Phillies win? How many games will, each team win? Who's going to be top of the division? And a lot of people expected the Phillies to be around that 92 to 95 sweet spot. I'm curious to know, how have your predictions so far panned out? We were talking about this before the show. Some of us in the room, I won't say names, had like the Astros, for example.
I said the Yankees weren't going to make the playoffs.
Some people said the Yankees weren't going to make the playoffs. So I'm curious to know, so far, it is still very early. It's still very early, obviously. But so far, how have your predictions panned out? And is there a team that's still a sleeper that you feel like is going to emerge as the season progresses? We never know how injuries are going to pan out. We never know who's going to slump when. But on this May, the 15th? I'm curious to know kind of your thoughts on so far predictions and any sleepers that you still are keeping an eye on.
Yeah, I didn't think Houston would win the division, actually. I thought Seattle would, and they're right up there in first place. I thought Seattle would hit better, though. So I've been a little disappointed in that. They might have to go fix that a little bit. But they've, they're off to a good start, a fine start. I didn't really. I thought Kansas City would get better. I didn't think they'd be, right there in first place or on the edge of first place. I think they are in first place now, or maybe a half game out. Just because the idea that they lost 106 games last year, so even if they improve by 20, they're still going to lose 86, and they might. But Kansas City's off to a really, really nice start in the AL Central, so that's a little bit of a sleeper. I think, again, I thought they made progress, but not really contend. And I didn't think Cleveland would be this good either, because they didn't do anything to address their offense. But they've been good even without their ace Shane Bieber. So those are a couple of teams that come to mind. I thought Arizona would be a little better. I saw last October. I think there's still time for them to figure things out and get healthy. But yeah, those are some. And honestly, I didn't expect the Phillies to be the first team to win 30 games. I mean, I thought they'd be very good, but to be the best team in baseball right now, that's probably a little more than I thought. Although I did pick them, to represent the NL and play the Mariners in the World Series. So that's still in play.